of maybe something that you haven't seen before, so a little bit different for this committee anyway, for the 4 other members here other than myself, but part of what we do. So, welcome to the Town of Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I will start by introducing the committee members and staff. I am the committee chair. My name is Tom Plamondon. The remaining members of the committee are as follows. To my left, Michelle Boyer, Steve D'Angeli, and to my right, Vice Chair Clarence Louis and Daniel Lajeunesse. The Secretary-Treasurer is Antonio Greco, and Matthew Peverini is the planner this evening. For each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. I will briefly outline the purpose of the application or applications, and then the applicant or agent will then be given the opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as received. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address and sign the corresponding request for notice form on the table in front of you, but on my left, your right. After completing the form, please hand it to the Secretary-Treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentations shall be made. If you require any assistance with regard to visual material or technical assistance, please let me know before making the presentation. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are available on the desk as well in front of us, again, to my left and your right. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions for tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form. Owners and agents will automatically be notified. Please ensure that all questions and or comments are directed through me as the chair, and if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any question or comment, should the committee feel that it is appropriate. So, with that, I will look to the committee for approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. We're all looking for the button.
Through the chair, thank you. I move that we approve the meeting agenda for August 8th, 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Seconded. Michelle, all in favor? That is approved. I'll ask members of the committee if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, thank you very much. We have the Committee of Adjustment meetings of July the 11th, 2019, which have been circulated and I believe have been updated with corrections. And this is meeting number 19-07. I'll look for a motion to approve those minutes. Clarence.
I move for the adoption of the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment held July 11, 2019, being meeting number 19-07.
Thank you. Seconded by Daniel. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Moving right along. So the first application that we have this evening is minor variance application MV 2019-18, and that is the York Region Police Association at 63 Eric T. Smith Way. There are two. The purpose of application MV 2019-18A is to increase the maximum floor area ratio for office use to 58.2%, whereas the site-specific zoning bylaw requires a maximum of 50%, thereby requiring a variance of 8.2%. The purpose of application MV 2019-18B is to reduce the minimum parking spaces to 168, almost bumped it up on you there, whereas the zoning bylaw requires 223, thereby requiring a variance of 55 parking spaces. Departments and agencies that have been circulated, Planning Division application reviewed subject to conditions, Building Division preliminary zoning review, Engineering Division application reviewed, no comments, Operational Services, Central York Fire, Electric Utilities, York Region application reviewed, no comments from any of those. There appear to be no comments to the application. There are conditions imposed in relation to the approval of the application. Ms. Kerrigan Kelly, good evening and welcome. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kerrigan Kelly of Groundswell Urban Planners. With me tonight is my client, Mr. Owen Mashinter from the York Regional Police Association. I have also with me Mr. John Northcote, who is a professional engineer. He's our traffic consultant with JD Engineering. And I also have Mr. Brad Rogers and Mr. Heath Purtell-Sharp with me, also from Groundswell.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight to speak to the proposed variances for 63 Eric T. Smith Way. This is the property that is to be used as the future headquarters for the York Regional Police Association. I'm going to refer to them as the YRPA, if you don't mind. The YRPA is a labor union representing approximately 2,400 members of the labor force of the York Regional Police, but it is a separate entity from the York Regional Police. I just wanted to make that distinction. Their current headquarters is located in Newmarket at the corner of Bayview and Stonehaven Avenues. Just over time, the building has started to reach the end of its life, and the grounds surrounding the property, or I should say within the property, are starting to add up in terms of cost of maintenance. So with that, the YRPA have decided to move their headquarters to this site in Aurora, and they've designed what we think is a beautiful building to accommodate their current and future growth. We've been working with the YRPA and their architect to build a building that meets their mandate in terms of growth for their members, but also providing meaningful space for their association. So social areas, indoor as well as outdoor, and I can indicate a few spaces on the property. This is the outdoor amenity space that's just meant for passive social activities here. This is the building that's being proposed here near the middle of the site. And then we have the parking lot here, which is fronting onto Eric T. Smith Way. A site plan for this building has been submitted to the Town of Aurora planning staff, and we've been working with planning staff quite cooperatively to address outstanding technical matters. We're down to just a few at this point. We've satisfied, I think, most of them, and we're hoping to resolve a few of them in the next few weeks. During the review, we've had also a number of discussions with staff and their traffic consultant regarding the traffic and the parking proposed for the site. It's our understanding, as well as within the staff report tonight, that they're satisfied with what we've proposed for parking on the site. So we have two variance applications before you tonight, as Mr. Plamondon has outlined. I'm happy to answer any questions and have any comments directed to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will ask if there is anyone here from the public that wishes to speak I see lots of heads going like this, so I would assume that you're here for maybe another application. All right, thank you. I'll look to the committee for any questions to the applicant and/or consultant. Maybe, oh, go ahead.
So sorry, you just made reference to a few technical outstanding matters. Are there any that are not in the documentation that would be pertinent to the variances that are under consideration tonight?
Pertain to stormwater management and minor site grading issues. They're not traffic or, I think there's a few landscaping changes that they'd like us to make, but nothing to affect what you see in front of you this evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering if any of those might actually result in perhaps another variance that, you know, would end up having to come back, knowing that you wouldn't want to have to do that.
Correct. We do not want to go down that road, and we hope that we've caught enough. We're sufficiently advanced in our plans that we think we've caught everything, and that these are hopefully the only variances we'll need.
Okay. Just for information for my benefit, when I was looking at it, and I noticed that part of the application speaks to space within the building that would be leased. Is that to help with the financial model that they are using in order to pay for the property and in the building and facilities? Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I mean, a lot of space has been proposed within the building to accommodate future office needs of the YRPA. However, in the interim, while that space isn't needed, it is intended to lease that out to complementary businesses, travel agents, that kind of thing, to offset some of the costs. Yes.
Okay. And I know I read it somewhere, but I'm just, help me refresh my memory. What's the total staff right now? Do you have an idea on that?
I'd have to confer with my client. I'm happy to do that if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm thinking again, parking issues and what have you, and you covered that off very well in the traffic analysis, peak period use and what have you. But I'm just curious, in terms of, so what would be permanent staff, their numbers wise? Any idea?
Currently, we have about 12 staff members.
12.
To the office every day.
Okay. And along with that, the comment that I read in the traffic analysis is obviously your functions, your social functions would be when weekends, evenings, when that staff is likely somewhat reduced. Am I correct? Okay. And I was just curious, and I'll ask it anyway, the outdoor sports rectangle there, what would that be used for?
They don't have confirmed plans yet. That's still under design. They're talking about, bocce ball or horseshoes, that kind of activity. Nothing too extensive.
Yeah, it just wasn't labeled, and I thought, gee, is this like, it looks too small for basketball, and
Yeah.
I was just trying to nail it down in my own mind. Okay, that's terrific. And the area to outside. Is outside receptions and that kind of thing, or just a place for the members to go and relax?
So, Mr. Chair, there is space for the members, but there is a small amount of outdoor space that is anticipated to be used for functions when they occur in the event space. I'll show it on the plan. It's generally this area here to be used for events, but members' areas will predominantly be having access to this.
Okay. Terrific. That answers my questions. Anyone else? Daniel? You got the one.
There you go.
One over. Yeah.
Thank you. Through the chair. Just an extension curiosity as well as having attended a few social events at your Newmarket location. With the 25% reduction in parking and having experience with previous, are you foreseeing any issues there in terms of having enough space for these social events? Is that a limitation, or are you comfortable paralleling what is going on
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think, and I don't want to suppose, but I'm guessing that a lot of times when you've been at the current location, you've seen the parking lot pretty full. They do have sports leagues that currently use the outdoor soccer and baseball diamonds. They don't have that here. So a lot of what I think is driving the current parking demand will not be needed here. To answer, I guess, the second part of your question, we've looked at the parking that were proposed both for daytime office use as well as special events in the banquet center, and we don't feel that we have a shortfall at all that would hinder our operations, or I should say my client's operations. I think that's what I thought.
The
Yes.
plan, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I'll look to the committee for a motion on the applications. Go ahead, Michelle.
Through the chair, I'd like to motion that we accept minor variance 2019-18A and minor variance 2019-18B, subject to the conditions as outlined.
So I'll just, before we go to a seconder, and I should have asked this at the onset, I did make reference to the conditions. I'll ask the applicant, are you okay with the conditions that have been appear?
We satisfied with them, and they would be incorporated with our site plan agreement, which we're prepared to do.
Thank you. I'll look for a seconder then on that motion. Daniel, all in favor? Carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience in waiting. Nice to see you. Mr. Rogers, nice to see you as well. All right. So moving. The next applications that we have are minor variance applications for Baker and D. Kuiper, 200 Wellington Street West and 7 Kenlia Court. And this is application minor variance. We're going to deal with the minor variance first. It's minor variance 2019-09. And the purpose of the application is the applicant is proposing a lot frontage of 29.93 meters for the retained lot, thereby requiring a variance of 0.07 meters. Departments and agencies circulated. Planning Division, application reviewed subject to conditions. Building Division, preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division, application reviewed, no comments. Operational Services, application reviewed subject to conditions. Central York Fire Services, application reviewed, no comments. Electric Utilities, application reviewed, no comments. York Region, application reviewed subject to conditions. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, application reviewed subject to conditions. So there are conditions imposed in relation to the approval of this application. Applicant or agent, good evening, sir. Welcome. And your name?
Good evening. My name is Al Ruggiero. I'm with Infoplan Research, and I'm here on behalf of of Krista and Ian, who own the property.
And good evening to you, Al. It's nice to see you
Nice to see you,
again
Tom.
after many years. I'll just make sure that you are aware that there are conditions, and are you satisfied
Yes.
with? You
Yeah,
don't have any, okay. So I have to ask, is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak on this application? And seeing none, I'll look to the committee if there are any questions on just the minor variance to the applicant. Anything, Mr. Ruggiero, that you want to say, or is there anything that we should know that we may not have read in the packages?
Perhaps just to say that what we're looking at are two properties, 7 Kenley and 200 Wellington, which are they're adjacent to one another. Both have roughly frontages of about 30 meters. What brought this about was we're in the process through the applications, through the three consent applications, we were adjusting the lot lines. and so that resulted in the need for a minor variance for 7 Ken Lee. And as you indicated, Mr. Chair, the variance is extremely minor. It's 0.07 meters.
And I'm going to suggest that as a result of that, it's really in looking at the way that this would result, if approved, it makes it more regular, if I can use the property lines, then become a little bit more consistent, a little bit more regular, obviously easier to define, et cetera.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to ask staff a question on this one. So 200 Wellington, would it be the intent the intent of the town to have the newly created lot on Wellington have this 200, or would there be some other civic address assigned to that? Or would there be a new one assigned to it and a new one assigned to the one that now would front on Kenlea?
Through the chair, it would be a Wellington Street address, and it is likely that the 200 Wellington Street address currently would be converted to a Ken Lee court address.
Okay,
But that will be determined at a later stage.
okay. Is that your intent? Is that
And-
your
and-
understanding as well,
Yes, in fact,
Mr.
Mr.
Ruggiero?
Chairman, my understanding is that the owners currently, the 200 Wellington Street address actually has a municipal address of 9 Ken Lee. They,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they legally have that address apparently, so
Okay.
that when 200 Wellington, which is what the 9 Ken Lee is known as, when the new lot is created, the Wellington Street address will have, or the newly created lot will have a Wellington Street address, and the existing one, currently known as 200 Wellington, will convert to 9 Ken Lee.
Okay, thanks. You know, when we were reading this, I was like piecemealing this thing,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm saying, well, why is this, it's going to 200, but wait a minute, then it's going to, anyway, it would have been nice. I don't know if I'm speaking for the rest of the committee, but, you know, when I was reading, and I'm a planner, when I'm reading it, I'm looking at this thing, and this is going to 200, but wait a minute, if it goes to, yeah, okay, anyway. So, yeah, that answers that. So I'll look to the committee if there are any other questions, or Steve, yeah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, question for staff. I'm trying to make sense of for this variance, the conditions that the owner, and I understand that it says may be required to provide an evaluation report by a certified arborist. How is this minor variance that we are considering today, you know, for that 0.07 meter variance, how does staff see that as impacting the trees?
Through the chair, the review by our Parks Department in providing the comments was largely for the 4 applications altogether, because the minor variance relates to the subsequent consent applications that are next on the agenda. So it was a template of conditions that applied to all of them. So if the consent applications are subsequently approved, it's kind of all the same. So that's the intent behind that, not specifically for this minor reduction here.
So thank you, Matthew, and through you once again, Mr. Chair, I think I have the same question for the consent, because we don't have building permits here. If I'm not mistaken, the zoning approves a single-family dwelling, and I'm trying to make sense of, you know, the tree removal condition here, and we don't have anything before us that would be removing trees. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. At this time, there is no no permit in process.
Let me just take, so to the applicant, have there been any discussions with staff planning on the potential for constructing a single-family dwelling on the site that would alert you to that condition?
No. I believe, I mean, these applications, similar applications were put, were before the town 5 years ago. And at that time, the Committee of Adjustment approved similar applications. And coming out of that discussion was through Parks. They had insisted if the new lot ended up coming forward with building permit application, at that time they would want to take a look at the existing trees on the property. This application is slightly different, but the same sort of comments came forward. We're not proposing, I mean, we have two existing lots with two existing homes on them, one on 7 Lee, one on 200 Wellington, or 9 Ken Lee. And so what's happened is what we've done through the consent applications is just rearrange the property line somewhat, as you probably noted from the 3 consent applications, 05 to 07, and it resulted in the minor variance application having to come forward as well. We're not changing. We're not at this point. We're not knocking down the 2 existing houses on the 2 properties, and nor are we coming forward with an application for a building permit for the new lot. What we were asked to do back then and now as well was demonstrate that the newly created lot would be able to support a new single-family home, which we demonstrated, and that was inclusive of the Conservation Authority's NEC 30-meter setback requirement.
Right. Yeah, that was something else that sort of...
Which we agreed to, but reluctantly.
Right.
Because if you've walked the site, you'll notice that the creek that's referred to, or the ditch that's referred to, is basically a ditch. Rarely is there any water in there at any given time, but it was identified, I guess, a number of years ago through conservation studies as a tributary and offshoot of the Tannery Creek system.
Right. Anything else? Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I didn't realize there was that much history on it. Okay, I'll look to the committee then for a motion on the minor variance. Stephen?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve minor variance 2019-09, subject to the staff conditions or the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
I'll look for a seconder on that. Clarence, thank you. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. So, I think we know where we're going here. So I'll go through them individually. We should be able to get through it fairly quickly. So this is consent application 2019-05, and the purpose of the application, the consent application, is to convey Part 5 from 200 Wellington Street West to 7 Kenley Court. Departments and agencies circulated. Planning Division, application reviewed subject to conditions. Building Division, preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division, application reviewed, no comments. Operational Services, application reviewed subject to conditions. Central York Fire, Electra Utilities, application reviewed, no comments. York Region, application reviewed subject to conditions. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, application reviewed subject to conditions. Applicant is familiar with the conditions as imposed. Do you wish to speak on this one, Mr. Ruggiero?
We accept the conditions in the report, some of them reluctantly. In particular, the Conservation Authority's setback requirement of 30 meters. We went to the extent, and again, we did this 5 years ago and did it again this time. We used WSP, which was Marshall Macklin Monahan, to do a natural heritage study for us. 5 years ago, they demonstrated that 30 meters wasn't necessary, and likewise again this year. But Conservation was adamant that 30 meters was the minimum they would accept. So, yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak on this particular application, consent application? Seeing none, I'll look to members of the committee for questions or a motion. Daniel?
Through the chair, just a quick question as I've looked for an aerial map with the new lines. Will the extent or the growth of Area 7 go on to the driveway that hits Wellington? And if so, will that be closed? No, right. What I'm just asking or concerned about is right of access. Will that be, if that road does go into the 7th property for a short amount of time, will that be broken?
The way the application has been set for 05 is for 7 Ken Lee is that it sort of squares off or creates a regular piece that has a minimum lot standard of 2,000 square meters. The driveway you're referring to, which comes in off Wellington, is well south of the rear property line for 7 Ken Lee.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Steve?
Yeah. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's more of a comment than a question. Those that know me that I am quite conservative about environmental conservation and have some experience with Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, and it's comments like these that truly baffle me in terms of how sometimes they will insist on the generally accepted 30 meters when I have walked the site and it clearly is a ditch, and you know, if that is a overwintering ground for endangered bats, there aren't a lot of them left, and I would just commend you and the owners of the property for accepting the conditions as imposed, because I think it allows for the expediency here, and I commend your environmental conservatism here, because it's clearly an extreme. And however, I do note that the properties are large enough to obviously support a large home, and therefore, as I say, I do support these motions, these consents.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll look to the committee for a motion on the consent. Daniel, thank you.
Through the chair, I move that we accept C 2019-05 with the restrictions as noted within the town recommendations.
Thank you. Seconder? Stephen, thank you. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Don't go too far away, Mr. Ruggiero. I wouldn't be quite so loose, but I know the planners in this area quite well, so, and I have not seen Mr. Ruggiero for quite a while, so it's nice to see him here. Keep him at the podium. The purpose of application 2019-06, the purpose of the above noted consent application is to convey Part 1 and 3 from 7 Kenlea Court to 200 Wellington Street. Planning Division, application reviewed subject to conditions. Building Division, preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division, application reviewed, no comments. Operational Services, application reviewed subject to conditions. Central York Fire Electric Utilities, application reviewed, no comments. York Region, application reviewed subject to conditions. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, application reviewed subject to conditions. Mr. Ruggiero, I assume that you and the applicant are familiar with the conditions. Thank you. Questions from the committee? Oh, no one from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none. I'll stick to protocol. I'll look to the committee for a motion on this consent. Clarence, thank you.
I move through the chair for the approval of application C 2019-06, subject to the conditions included in the staff report.
Thank you. Seconder? Stephen, thank you. I'll call a question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Finally, consent application C 2019-07. Again, we are 200 Wellington Street West and 7 Kenley Court. And the purpose of the above-mentioned application, consent application, is to create one new lot fronting on Wellington Street West. Departments and agencies circulated. Planning Division application reviewed subject to conditions. Building Division preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division application reviewed, no comments. Operational Services application reviewed subject to conditions. Central York Fire and Electric Utilities application reviewed, no comments. York Region application reviewed subject to conditions. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority application reviewed subject to conditions. Mr. Ruggiero, I would assume those conditions are satisfactory
Yes,
to
they
you
are.
and
Yes.
your client. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none, I'll look to the committee for questions and or a motion. Motion. Again, Clarence.
Through the chair, I move for the approval of application C 2019-07, subject to the conditions included in the staff report.
Thank you. Seconder? Stephen, thank you. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much for your patience, Mr. Ruggiero, and the applicant. And I'll bid you a good evening, and it was nice to see you again, Al.
We made this short.
Thank
I'm sure
you.
you're anxious to get home. So
All
thank
right.
you very much.
Thank
Nice
you.
seeing you, Tom.
All the best. So I'll look, item 5. Is there any new business for the committee, either from staff or members? Seeing none, I'll look to the committee for a motion to adjourn. Michelle, we are adjourned. Thank you. We did that in less than an hour.
45 minutes.